changes everything. All right, so I'm actually pretty crazy excited about this. I don't know if you're excited, but I'm definitely excited about today because I'm actually just cold because it's 50 degrees and this is Florida, but this is 50 degrees and so I'm freezing. Anyway, yeah, today marks this massive transition for me because in that box today, I got something that is completely new. It is a new camera brand, one that I've never owned before, and this marks absolutely a major transition that first started 17 years ago with... This is it. This is the camera that I purchased, and this is the Canon GL1. I eventually got the XL1 too, but I had to keep my first camera, and this began my entry into videography, professional videography. This line from Canon with the XL1s and GL1s was absolutely stunning for being able to shoot wedding and documentary style. It just completely revolutionized the marketplace. Such a cool design. It was portable, it was great quality, and it looked amazing. And you could see these things in almost every film that showed kind of a doc style or news crew had one of these XL1 cameras. For me, it completely changed the industry, got me into Canon when I was shooting with them. And everything was perfect and going so well, and then everything just changed and went completely crazy. So it wasn't too crazy, but that's when HD came along and it completely transformed everything for me because you needed to upgrade everything and rethink everything from the type of way that you were capturing all the way up through editing in your computer to how you were delivering. And for me, that was the moment when I quit. And you know, I'm sure everyone has been there at some point in your life where you got to that point where what you were doing just didn't feel like enough, and instead of tackling it and doing what you should have done, you just quit. But that's where I was. And looking back, there were a couple things that I did wrong, and the big two that I took away from that moment was you need to be charging whatever it is to support your gear now, as well as whatever upgrade costs you need to incur for your business. So as a business, you need to look not only to today, but hey, when technology changes 2-4 years from now, when you do need to upgrade your systems and do better, what can you do? Do you have the money to be able to upgrade? And for me, I just wasn't shooting enough and charging enough in order to make that happen. But the big takeaway for me, you know, I was so focused on competing with equipment and my gear that I lost sight of, you know, creativity, story, and the other things that I could be doing to convince and talk to my clients and things like that, to tell them that maybe it wasn't always about gear, maybe it wasn't about that, and maybe it was about the story or me or the creative process that I learned in that process. That was so much more important than the gear I was using. Honestly, I mean, 1080p, it was cool, but most of the TVs weren't even playing that at the time. Nobody was using Blu-rays, they were all using DVDs, which is just standard definition anyway. So why didn't I tackle and convince my customers on that and compete on story rather than on gear? So thankfully it didn't take too long before I started re-exploring what I loved, and this time I decided to get into photography. And this was a camera that got me there. It's the Fujifilm S1 Pro, and it's only 3 megapixels, and it was something that got me started there. But although this was a $4,000 camera when it came out, but this was a camera a buddy of mine let me use, and this began to get me back into photography, to get me back into creating, to re-find out what drove me as a story. And since then, I tried out a bunch of different cameras. I just never really found the one that I loved. No matter what brand I used, I just couldn't quite hit it. But that all changed not too long after that. So it's right then that Canon came out with their 5D Mark II, and that was a camera that drove me back into photo plus video. I mean, I come from the video market, and the 5D Mark II gave me unbelievable abilities to shoot video as well as still photography, and that was what brought me back into loving again, creating again, was able to shoot both video and photo. Love that camera, and it's so much it opened the door with full frame sensors that we weren't used to in video, and I just found that I could recreate some of the cool stuff that I always wanted to do with that camera. And it really kind of set the stage, got me back into Canon shooting, which I already went from Canon because I love their video camera, so for me it was a no-brainer. And that was a camera that drove me up until about a year or two ago. So we shoot primarily weddings, both photo and video, and then we have the YouTube projects and things like that as well. And while we do shoot both photo and video, Canon has had us covered for the last couple of years, but you know, over the last year or two, I began transitioning most of my video cameras outside of Panasonic, mostly because of 4K. It became something that I needed, both for weddings and wanted for weddings, as well as for the YouTube channel. And so that has kind of driven us away from Canon. So now pretty much all of my videos are shot on Panasonic, while our photos are shot on Canon, and this system, I just hate being on two different systems. There's advantages and disadvantages, but overall, it's just something that I don't like. And so I've been looking for that unified platform for a while to kind of give us what's the next generation of tech going to be that drives us away from these DSLRs and these dual system cameras into maybe a single unified system to what the 5D Mark II was for me originally. While 4K has become unbelievably important for me now in this next transition, I've also seen the transition away from DSLRs. It just no longer is necessary for an optical viewfinder in the focus system of a DSLR. Mirrorless cameras are capable of having EVFs that produce unbelievably clear images, as well as some big advantages for being able to shoot in live view with great autofocus. There just isn't much of a need for a DSLR solid focus system now because we have greater coverage and just as good quality out of mirrorless cameras. And so that begins this transition right here to a single unified platform. And I think that you guys mostly know about this camera, but I wanted to kind of show you what this transition is going to be. Now, Sally and I are going to be doing a video kind of explaining a little bit more in detail about why and how we're going to begin this transition. It is not going to be a perfect transition for us. There are things that are going to be difficulties along the road. Most importantly is going to be price. And so here is the next camera. So this is the camera we're going to be using here on out, and we'll begin this transition. And again, we're going to do a video on this, so stay tuned, make sure you subscribe, and while you're down there, please like and comment below what do you think about this new camera. You can also check out our A7R3 review, which I'll put a link to below as well as the kit that we're going to be using. Now, we're going to be building this out a little bit slowly. It's very expensive to switch platforms, as you might know, and this is for real. I mean, this is, you know, what we do on the YouTube channels, review tons of gears. I mean, I've got Nikon and Canon and everything else on here, and Panasonic, and so basically any system has been in here, but what I shoot with personally has a different kind of characteristic, and that's why I wanted to do this a little more story, because this is about me and Sally. This is about what we shoot, why we shoot, and this is about our personal transition into Sony for these. And so I want to kind of give you that heads up on what we're going to be doing, and again, stay tuned for a whole lot more. We're going to be showing off this camera and how we plan on using it. I got some weddings coming up this weekend, so that'll be a first maiden voyage for the Sony A7R3 into that. This is a professional camera. Finally, we have the features that I needed in order to use mirrorless the way that I use a DSLR, needed for my type of videos and basically everything that I can do. And one nice thing about this camera is that no matter what I'm shooting, I really feel like this camera can handle. So that's it for now. Stay tuned for a whole lot more. Again, hit that like button. Stay tuned for more.